Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feedstuffs 365. I'm Sarah Muirhead. Joining us today with a policy and trade update is Constance Cullman, President and CEO of the American Feed Industry Association. Welcome, Constance. So nice to have you with us here today.
Thank you, Sarah. It's a pleasure to be with you.
For those of you that are joining us, if you have any questions for Constance, you can post those there in the chat on your screen. If you're joining us from social media, you can post your questions directly in those channels. So, Constance, we are 100 days into the Trump administration. There's been lots of changes announced, lots of things going on when it comes to trade in particular. And of course, some of those things can have an impact on the feed industry. Where is the feed industry, the U.S. feed industry at this point on some of these things that are going on? Give us an update.
Well, I think the U.S. feed industry is right where everyone else in the industry is right now, and trying to navigate exactly what are the impacts of all of these incredibly rapid changes that we're seeing. The trade front, we're a big exporter, Sarah, in the animal food industry. We export, about 11.6 billion in feed ingredients, and pet food products just in 2004 alone. So this is a big area of watchfulness for us. I would say that we're cautiously optimistic that the president's strategy is going to result in addressing some of the existing trade challenges that we have and the uncertainty in the U.S. supply chain. But we're also concerned about weathering those impacts that we're facing in the short term.
So some possible challenges, certainly some things to watch.
Absolutely.
What are some of the opportunities do you see going forward? There must be some things that you're saying, hey, you know what, this could be a good thing.
Absolutely. When we take a look at some of the existing trade barriers and trade challenges that threaten the U.S. supply chain, they are many. When we look out across, we do have an uneven playing field with many of our trading partners. We have negotiated trade agreements with some countries, but remember, that's a relatively small percentage of the world. So we are facing challenges getting into many of the markets that we would love to see some growth in. And it's not just tariffs, Sarah. We're also looking at non-trade or non-tariff barriers, such as sanitary and phytosanitary concerns. And those have been wielded with impunity by many trading partners around the world. So we're really hoping that this strategy will result in some countries willing to negotiate. And indeed, our conversations with many of the trade officials within this administration indicate that there are many, many countries that are coming to the table and wanting to discuss that. So we're definitely looking for that. We want to open new markets. We have been saying for years that we would love to diversify our export market as well as our input suppliers. I think it's always healthier to manage risk. And certainly we saw that during the COVID era, where if we had multiple suppliers, we were much it was much easier to be more flexible, right? And adjust and nimble when we ran into some of our supply issues. And then, of course, we're also very keenly interested in looking at how we boost America's domestic manufacturing as some of the critical inputs.
So you mentioned supplies and suppliers, and
Yes.
I know the rest. We all went through that during COVID. Has some of that kind of been ironed out, or is there still possibly a situation when it comes to certain ingredients and certain things that the feed industry just needs to be aware of, or producers need to be aware of, or how do we adjust? What do we do?
Yes, we definitely have some challenges in that area. When we take a look at some of the critical inputs or those things that go into the supply chain that we cannot navigate around, we cannot compensate for when we can't get access. The first example that comes to mind are vitamins and amino acids. So when we take a look at vitamins, for instance, and these are just examples, we can cite these all across the food and ag supply chain. 70% of vitamin production and significant portions of the amino acids, about 77% of lysine, 91% of threonine, 84% of valine, and 27% of methionine used in the United States comes from China. So when we get into some of this tit-for-tat trade disputes that threaten a very sensitive relationship, we get a lot of concern. We feel a lot of concern. And that 70% of vitamin production, that's for human as well as animal food. And unfortunately, vitamins are not something that we can substitute for or adjust a feed formulation to compensate for the loss of vitamins in the formulations. So that is an example where it's a very sensitive situation. We want to see some improvement in that relationship. We want to see some diversity of that supply for the U.S. market and certainly around the world. But we also need to be careful, because right now we need those products and there's no place else we can get them. So we're looking for maybe some more strategic application of tariffs and assessments, and at the same time, finding a way to support bringing some of that production back to the United States.
So really kind of taking a look and doing that assessment and seeing what's possible. And so what are you telling feed industry? What are you telling your members at this point? Just to hang tight and let's see what we can get done?
Yes, one of the things that we're definitely encouraging our folks is to share information with us so that we can share that with the administration and let the administration know what the impact is on a very critical part of the economy. What we are also doing is encouraging our members maintain those close relationships. When you have a close relationship with your suppliers or folks that you're working with or your customers, that can help in a very uncertain time when things are changing. Those relationships make all the difference. But we are definitely sending the message to the administration that we need to have some sort of U.S. support for bringing some of this production back to the United States. We're definitely encouraging the notion of friendshoring. So we are very excited to see if there can be progress made in our relationships with some of those traditional allies that the United States has and bring some of the production to them as well. We don't have to have it all here. We would love to be able to buy from friends that we have a lot of certainty about that access and supply.
Now, we've also had a whole new leadership team come into the Department of Health and Human Services. Is that of any interest to the feed industry? Are you watching that as well, and what might happen from a consumption standpoint when it comes to, the protein sector?
Well, definitely intense interest. Whenever the FDA is one of the most critically important agencies for the animal food industry. Of course, FDA, the Center for Vet Medicine, approves every ingredient, virtually every ingredient that we bring to the market, gets some eyes set on it by FDA. So, of course, we're keenly interested. We have had the privilege of having a good working relationship with FDA. When you have a regulatory body, not everything is always perfect from an industry perspective by any means, but we've always been able to communicate and bring forward the science that is so keenly important when it comes to regulatory agencies and the review of products. So we are watching that. We do have an open line of communication with many of the individuals at FDA and within Health and Human Services. But we believe that if the intent is truly to make America healthy again, MAHA, that is being touted by Secretary Kennedy, then we really need to have science-based approaches to how we bring food to the consumers. And we believe we have an incredibly important role when we feed animals and we feed people's companion pets. That brings us close to the consumer, so that they can have access to the healthy animal proteins that are so important for micronutrients and overall health. So we are watching that closely. We are standing ready to work with the agency and make sure that science is brought into that evaluation.
What else is on your radar screen?
Well, there's a little piece of legislation in Congress called the Securing American Agriculture Act. And I wanted to mention that, Sarah, because this piece of legislation would really require USDA to annually review the global supply chains for U.S. agriculture. and the inputs that are critical for animal food production. So we are strongly supporting that. And it's nice to see Congress bringing that to the forefront of attention in the policy circles, and certainly working with the administration to make sure that we have the proper data that we need to be able to navigate a very complex situation. We see a lot of attention in the non-ag sectors on these critical supply chains. And so we definitely would like that same level of attention being paid on the food and the agriculture sector, because everyone knows food security is national security. And that is one of the things that we are certainly very excited to help the administration navigate. And we're looking forward to the passage of that legislation so that we can certainly have the right information to make good decisions. One other thing I would be remiss if not mentioning, because you did bring up FDA. We have the Innovative Feed Act that is currently in the House, and we're looking for introduction into the Senate that will allow us to modernize our regulations. And Sarah, there's nothing more important than being able to bring products to the market and be competitive internationally. And we have amazing innovations sitting out there ready to be introduced into the U.S. market. We just can't get them there because our regulatory process is so outdated. And compared to our peers around the world who can get access to these innovations, puts us at a strong disadvantage. So while we're in this mode of U.S. competitiveness and bringing production here to the U.S. shores, let's make sure that we've got regulatory systems that will actually allow us to bring these innovations to market. So those are two pieces of legislation. We've talked a lot about the administration this morning, but Congress has a real role in helping us be able to move forward as an industry.
And you think Congress is willing to take a look at some of those things? Are you seeing that in Congress?
We're seeing a lot of interest in taking a look at the things. The problem I think that we are facing right now is that there are some big issues in front of Congress and a slim majority in both chambers. And that is the biggest challenge. There's just a lot of things that are on the plate. But fortunately, despite all of those big issues that we hear about in the national media every day, we are finding leaders within Congress that are paying attention to some of these critically important things that have to happen. Even though they may seem small to the average consumer, they're not. And we do have some leadership that is recognizing that. So once I think they figure out how to navigate those slim majorities, I am very hopeful that we'll see passage, and that will put us back on the path of being very competitive.
Well, that's definitely good news. So any final thoughts to leave our audience with here today, Constance?
Well, I think just one thing is that the animal food industry is definitely poised to work with the administration and work with Congress. We are having conversations and communicating every day on the issues that are really important to the industry. And we believe that by working together on these things and taking a approach that recognizes that we've got allies around the world that we can collaborate and work with, we'll be able to address many of these issues. And we are certainly excited about the future of the animal food industry.
Very good. Constance Cullman, President and CEO of the American Feed Industry Association. Thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you very much for having me.
And thank you all for tuning in as well. For Feedstuffs, I'm Sarah Muirhead.